Welcome, everybody. And today's episode, I have my co-host here, Elliott Greenberg. And today we're going to talk about how to make your home stand out in this red-hot market. So even though homes are on the market for maybe a day or 3 at the most, it seems, you can still do things to make your house better and stand out for, and when I say better, I mean more money than the house next door that might be the same square footage, same number of bedrooms, but there are things that you can do to make yours stand out to make more money. So welcome, Elliott. Thank you for co-hosting. So I do have to tell you that, shameless plug, we did co-author and write this book, 14 Days to Sold. But in today's market, it should not take you 14 days to get it sold. It could probably take you 14 days to get it from under contract to close, wouldn't you say?
Or maybe you could just rephrase it and say 14 minutes on market.
14 minutes to sold. That's a great new title for our book. So we're going to talk about some of the things that are in the book, some tips that you can do to get more money because, let's face it, that's what you want. You want to maximize that investment that you have. So, Elliott, what is one of the things that you think that, well, not that you think, that you know, are in our book that people can do to get their home sold quicker for more money than the one next door?
I would say first and foremost, probably to research and find out what repairs are needed by, hiring a professional inspection company or an inspector. We can eliminate any type of, let's call it, negotiation in favor of the buyer because now they need to get everything fixed that was discovered at the buyer's inspection.
A lot of times what I see happening is a seller will say, well, I'm just going to wait for the buyer to get the inspection and then I'll work off that. Why is that a bad idea?
Well, it's not that you can't do that, but it's now a inflated price because a buyer's illusion of what a floor to repair might cost is thousands of dollars when you and I know a handyman can fix that for maybe a couple $100s. So in doing it ahead of time, it saves the seller a lot of aggravation as well as money, obviously, because now you're going to spend less time on the market.
Also, I feel like it gives the seller the opportunity, like you said, they've inspected the home before they've even put it on the market. They know what's wrong with the house. They'll know the big things, like if there's an air conditioning problem and heating, if there's a roof issue, if there's a tile missing or a shingle missing, or electrical or plumbing.
Yeah, we're always looking or trying to look at big ticket items or big major systems, if you will. I don't want to say, let's fix the, crack in the tile. Obviously, if you're going to sell a home, it doesn't make sense to fix that crack in the tile. Just sell it with the understanding that that tile exists, aka professional photos would show that, and then highlighting it maybe in the property disclosure.
Wow. I feel really strong that they have an opportunity to fix these things, and like you mentioned a few minutes ago, is it takes the negotiations to a different level so that the buyer is not now going to come there and start beat up on your price. It's like, well, this is wrong and that's wrong. You've already fixed the main things, so you know that whatever their inspection, by their I mean the buyer's inspector comes up with, it's going to be minor stuff. It's not going to be those big ticket items.
Of course.
Do you agree?
Yeah, definitely.
So also a lot of times in fact, it just happened with one of our agents. The contract said the electrical issue has to be fixed by a licensed electrician, which is important, but in the same vein, it could be that maybe something's wrong with the plumbing, as in the washer. It's leaking. Well, that's what, a $5 fix? And if you're under contract, they might say, well, we want everything to be done by a licensed plumber. Well, a licensed plumber to fix something that I can actually fix, and that's kind of a miracle if I can fix it. So,
well, no, you're right. It's once you're under contract, you've got a heavier expense because you're hiring professional contractors now as opposed to handyman.
Not that there's anything wrong with professional contractors,
of course,
but
just it's going to be a more cost that you could have avoided. And then furthermore, we were just talking about cost, financing. It comes into play on a lot of these repairs. If we are going to finance this home that, aka the buyer, is going to pay with a lender, we need to know if the windows are intact, because the lender might not lend if the windows are not intact.
What do you mean by intact?
If there's a cracked window or things like that.
Like fogged
windows. FHA financing dictates, VA financing as well, dictates that they have to cure that. The seller would have to fix that in order to close on that loan. AKA, we should just fix it ahead of time, and then you avoid the heavier costs.
And that's important for sellers to understand, is that and we'll probably do that in a different podcast, but different financing requires different things to be fixed or not fixed and what have you. So like you said, FHA, if you have a fogged window, I know automatically you got to get that fixed.
Exactly. Old systems as well, those will play into that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just important that you do this pre-inspection, if you call it a pre-inspection, and try to address the major ticket items, if not everything. I always say to an owner, if you can do everything, go ahead and fix it all.
Yeah. Yeah, fix as many things as you can to take away some of the things that they're going to hit you up for something anyway. So,
and then you can get hopefully your asking price or maybe even better.
And that's how your house will stand out from the house next door that didn't do any inspections.
Absolutely.
Now all of a sudden their heating and air conditioning is old or something's going bad. It could be anything really, and then
you're eliminating the competition. I mean, you have to think about this industry, and when you're selling a home, it's no different than Joe Schmo across the street has their home for sale. How do I make myself look better, more, competitive, and a better value, if you will, even though maybe we're priced very close or similarly.
And an inspection isn't Uncle Joe coming and looking at your house, even though he's really good and he's a handyman. It's bringing in the professionals, like you Google it, home inspectors, and check them out.
Yes, definitely look at Google reviews or any type of recommendations that you can get from fellow, either people that love and trust, or, a neighbor.
Yeah. And another thing that I like to recommend people is when you talk about declutter, the first thing people think about is, I got to take all the family pictures off of the walls and off of the counters and all of that. But it really goes into, to me, it's called organization. I like to tell my customers to organize their closets. If it's like right now, it's turning into winter, even though we're in Florida, it's winter. And so take all the things that are in your closet that are summer. Take the hat, the sun hat and all those things and all your summer clothes, and take them out of your closet. Put them in a suitcase. And I always tell them to put it in a suitcase, because when you're packing to go on to travel, where do you put your clothes? In a suitcase, because otherwise you're going through a million boxes trying to find, where did I put that outfit? So this way you don't have to do that. So put your things that are out of season in a suitcase or in boxes or whatever you have to do. Get them out of your closet so that you have more space, because when a buyer comes in, they're looking at those closets. They want to know, do I have space? It's like the woman always wants the bigger closet. They always point to the smaller one. That's my partner's. I always laugh. They always give them the small one.
Well, no, it's true. And you got to think about it. You're selling a home, not your home. I know it feels that way, but you need to make it under the impression to the buyer that this has not been lived in.
Yeah.
That's kind of what they want.
They all want that new home feel.
Correct.
So you have to give them the space. So another thing that I like to tell them when they're organizing, and this is really more for packing when you're moving, is if you're not using some of the pots and pans and the dishes, or you can get away with some of them, start packing them up. Just pack them up and color code it. If it's in the kitchen, get the duct tape that's green, and that signifies it's all going in the kitchen, so that when you move.
But especially in our market, I mean, like I do, 30 days max is what you're going to take to close on a home.
Yeah.
Maybe 45. So if
pack
your
it up.
seller's not packing or under the impression they're moving, better get them on board.
That's right. That's right. So speaking of color coding, that's another tip that I give people so that their closets, again, closets are always so crammed with clothes and shoes. So a tip that I give them is to color code it. Put all the white things together, the blues together, the reds, and it just makes it just look nice and neat and clean, because a messy closet makes it look like this closet's not big enough for me or for myself and my spouse. So,
well, if you can't afford to necessarily do some of these things ahead of time, it's okay. Just factor that into your pricing, obviously.
Yeah, and because these things do affect the price. It's like the house next door, it's all decluttered and nice and organized, and my house is not. Home buyers nowadays, they want new. Or
vacant even. Vacant shows better. I always try, if a seller can afford to, try to leave it vacant. Now, granted, staging plays into this, but I would rather have staged furniture with a vacant home that we could possibly close in, a couple weeks, as opposed to one that's being lived in, even though we could make it feel like it's being not lived in.
Yeah, I'd take a staged home over a lived in.
And they pay more usually. Stats have varied, but over the years I've seen anywhere from like 15 to 18% national average when you stage a home versus an unstaged home. So you might make more money just heck, moving out and staging the home.
That's true. If you can afford to do that. A lot of people can't,
Yes,
but I think that's super important. And that's, I think that's, and what other tips can we give our listeners to?
Well, maybe not in this market, but an appraisal is usually and generally our third step in our kind of process of, presenting your home in the best possible light to get you maximum dollar. In our market, it's a little different, but an appraisal ahead of time. So we know that the lender, on behalf of somebody financing, is going to, ask for an appraisal. They'll order an appraisal, and they're going to present that report to the lender, to the buyer, to make sure that obviously they can loan on behalf of the, value or the purchase price.
And there are, even in today's hot market, red hot market, there are homes that, we're seeing these inflated prices by well, I shouldn't say inflated because they're getting the prices, so they're not inflated, but they're 29-30% higher than what the list price is. And so sometimes they're not appraising. And even in this market, and I did have that happen, it did not appraise. So getting a pre-appraisal would have been very helpful.
It eliminates the question of, am I giving my house away? That's the number one question I think on sellers' minds these days is, how do I know I'm actually getting true big Z? Are their values wrong? Yes, but not always. But could I have gotten more? That's a question I never want to have a seller ask me.
Yeah. Did I undersell my home? Yeah.
And that eliminates it by doing that pre-appraisal. Even though a lender's appraiser might come in and do things a little differently, typically that appraisal will stay on file. I think it's for 6 months.
6 months, yeah.
So you're going to look at, and another future appraiser is going to look at that same report.
Yeah. And I see that, not that it's not in our book or the tips, but the tip that I wanted to say is I was listening to some other podcasts and things, and the predictions for 2022 are that the market will slow down. It won't be so red hot. It's still hot, but it's not going to be so many multiple offers. And they're expecting this probably in quarter 3, that prices will start to level off and that interest rates will go up slightly into just under 4%, which is still pretty low.
Didn't you have a loan at 18 or 20, you told me once upon a time ago?
Well, it could have been many years ago. I'm like,
and I know my credit card's about 20%, so.
There you go.
You're doing okay on the homes.
But you're doing okay on the homes, and what I wanted to say was, even when it does start to creep up, it will prevent some first-time home buyers from getting into the market, because just that little bit of an interest rate rise will stop them from having to buy a home, which means they'll then go into rental guys property management and they'll have to start renting. But until then, it will start to slow down. So if you are in the market to sell a home, especially if you're buying a home that is for that first-time home buyer, now is a great time to jump into the market. And also, while these first-time home buyers can qualify while the rates are still in the low 3%, mid 3s, because it will go higher. That's
even a 1% increase, I've been told this before, only decreases your purchase power by about $10,000 per 1%.
But that could be the difference between
$250 and $220.
Yeah,
which might not get you in that brand new home.
That's right. So you never know. You never know. So this has been great, Elliott. Thank you so much for joining me today on Live with Zelda, our podcast. And until next time, Zelda and Elliott saying, have a great afternoon.
Hasta la vista.
Hasta la vista. Bye now.